This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this week's episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's show, we've got a Randy Orton update. We've got a Bray Wyatt update. We've got a CM Punk update. What this massive announcement for AEW means. Of course, there's a whole bunch going on with WWE. We're going to break it all down right here, right now. Doing it with me, as always, he's the one. He's the only. He is the man, and to be the man, you had to have beaten the man. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Great week of wrestling. Lots of updates. Yeah, lots of news. Tony Khan makes an announcement so that he can make another announcement next week. Always a good time when you have Roman Reigns return to SmackDown. Things are starting to take shape with Night of Champions. I'm looking forward to this podcast, cuz what's the first thing that's on the list of things to talk about, man? So much good stuff this week.
Well, I think we kick it off with WWE. And the one thing that I gathered from Raw and then watching SmackDown, I feel like Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and the tag team championships feel the most relevant that they have in a long, long time. I mean, if you look at what we were given on Monday Night Raw, you had Imperium chasing them, you had the Judgment Day chasing them, and then you had the Bloodline chasing them. All these people in the mix going after the tag team championships. Of course, Sami Zayn coming off of a white-hot streak where he was key in the Bloodline storyline. Kevin Owens, it's been a little stop and start for him, I'd say, over the past 18 months. I think where they're at right now, mixed in with all of these different storylines, mixed in with the tag team championships. And look, tag team championships were very relevant because the Usos had them and they set a streak with them. So they were relevant. But I feel like right now, with the wide net that has been cast by both Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and the chase after these tag team championships, I feel like they are the most relevant that they have been in a very, very long time. Is that fair or is that foul?
No, very fair. You want to see what is going to happen next. You want to see the elevation of the tag teams in WWE. Now, you wish it was applied to both sides. When you see the women's, is just totally different. But in terms of what Sami Zayn has done, it's just amazing to see that we're all excited about tag team matches, what's going to happen, who's going to be elevated, and you got to give credit to Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens because you have these two characters that really, really stand out as being guys that are really singles performers, but are believable as a tag team.
Yeah, no, and I think that's the thing, right? These guys both could go on their own, both do a lot of great things. Both of them have gone on their own and both have done great things, but they're a tag team. And I find them to be so interesting right now. And we're going to end up bookending our WWE segment with a little bit of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens because, again, they are all over the place. They're on Raw, they're on SmackDown, and they feel incredibly relevant. Some reports that came out this week regarding WWE, regarding Seth Rollins, and that new Raw championship. There are some reports that people in WWE have concerns about Seth Rollins being that new Raw champion since he's taking on more and more movie roles. Currently, he's filming the new Captain America movie. Do you see this as an issue? We've seen this done before with a ton of wrestlers. WWE, for the longest time, had their own movie production studio, and that was how The Miz was in the Marine 1 through 87. I'm not really sure that this is a big deal. I don't really think this is a massive problem. Now, we have seen it where it does interfere with their WWE schedule. And the one thing about this championship is that they want whoever wears his belt to show up every week because Roman doesn't show up every week. Sometimes Roman doesn't show up for a whole month straight. They want the person who wears his belt to be there day in, day out. With Seth filming movies, that could pull him in other directions and keep him away from Monday Night Raw. You've seen it this week. Again, he's filming Captain America. They did video vignettes with him where he's doing a sit-down interview with Corey Graves. Is this an issue, and should this be a concern for WWE?
Man, it's tough, though, because now Seth has been in that position, now, where he's wrestled for 10 years. your body aches, man, and you start seeing the life where you're like, oh man, the life of Hollywood is so much easier. You show up on set, you do a take, you sit around for an hour, do another take, you get paid $5 million, and you don't have to travel the grind. 10 years is a long time to travel the world. So I am concerned when you told me, this is the first I've heard of it. I didn't know he was even shooting a movie because everyone, me, myself included, widely recognize Seth Rollins as being the wrestling champion of the world, the best wrestler. So to see it go down like this, any time away, I mean, I understand if you can work one show, you work a little bit of limited house dates, then I can understand it. But I could see Seth Rollins with his personality being an action hero or a comedic figure in the world of Hollywood. So it's unfortunate, but hey, you can't begrudge anybody who gets an opportunity, man. Seth Rollins is a dude that put his body on the line for 10 years, and you start seeing Roman, John Cena, and the money that's out there, you have to take advantage of it.
Yeah, and like I think that's kind of where he's at, right? Like he's got a daughter now, he's married, he's been in this game forever, and now there's a new opportunity that has presented itself to him, so why not go after it? And I understand WWE's concern, right? You have one champion who already takes a ton of time off. But I think similar to what you said, give this guy a more relaxed house show schedule. Let him show up for the Raw tapings, right? Or the live Raw events. Have him show up for those. Have him show up for the pay-per-views. But relax what he does in the meantime. Most of the time, a WWE wrestler's schedule goes something like this, where they'll be on the road Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, off Thursday, on the road Friday, Saturday, and then Sunday's usually a pay-per-view. You basically get one day off a week. So relax that. Have him show up for Mondays. If you need him there on a Friday, have him show up on a Friday. Have him show up on a Sunday. It's give him a 3-day work week instead of a 4 or 5 or 6-day work week. And I think you could make that work. I think you could come to an understanding. Now, a lot of times the concern with film studios are, is he going to get hurt wrestling? Because it happened to The Rock, it happened to John Cena, and it delays filming because they're injured, they're banged up, they can't do what they were hired to do. So there's always that concern, and that's part of the reason why The Rock missed out on WrestleMania 39. He had different things going on. Also, he didn't feel like he was going to be in wrestling condition because, again, filming movies pulls you in other directions. John Cena usually works it around to where he's always in really good shape. And if he needs to get in wrestling condition, he can usually do it in a couple of weeks. I think we would all agree John Cena's last couple of matches, even me as a huge fan of John Cena, last couple of matches haven't really been his best in-ring stuff, and I think a lot of it does have to do with his conditioning. So there is a bit of a concern. I totally understand it. But that being said, I think if you were to lighten the load on Seth Rollins as far as the house shows go, I think you could really make this work, and I think that's probably going to be the give and take here. Now, I think SmackDown did a really nice job this week, laying out a lot of foundational nuggets for the next story for a lot of wrestlers. There was a whole lot of, this is what is coming down the line. I wanted to get your interest, engage you on what you found to be most intriguing. What has you scratching your head saying, yeah, that looks like it's going to be a really good story? Because I thought the whole thing with Austin Theory and Sheamus, I thought that was really cool. Sheamus just came down and gave him a boot straight to the face. Didn't say anything. Grayson Waller, AJ Styles, that seems like that could be really interesting. Obviously, you talked about the women's tag team, and Liv Morgan's out. So who does Raquel Rodriguez go and find as a backup? What happens with that championship? Because there was a storyline for Shayna Baszler and Ronda Rousey to end up taking those belts off of them. That is now changing. Creative is now changing with the women's tag team championship. So what has you most intrigued? Because I really felt like what we got on SmackDown was a whole lot of little bit of nuggets leading us to the following couple weeks of good wrestling programming. You know, you bookended it with what you had going on with the Usos, and we're going to get into that in a few moments here. But in the middle, it was a whole lot of setup for the coming weeks. So what has you most interested?
Absolutely. Everything that you just said, I just thought, wow, Sheamus just looked really strong by doing what he did, by attacking Austin Theory. I thought it was spectacular. But what really
didn't even say anything, just came out and just gave him a bro kick right to the mouth.
it was perfect. But what's interesting is AJ Styles versus the entire SmackDown roster. I think it's great. I think you have a feud potentially with Grayson Waller. It was interesting because his SmackDown debut with the Waller effect was really interesting in that it was hyped up, but it made him look a little bit cartoonish. I just thought that he needs to be the shit talker. He doesn't need to he's a natural heel. Just be yourself. I don't think you need to add all that extra element with Grayson. I think he's great. It came out at the end, the build up where he says, "Oh, I know what's going to happen. It's going to be Seth Rollins winning." But I think that's going to be a great feud with AJ Styles. And then the one that was really interesting was Karrion Kross has AJ Styles in the crosshairs. Time's up, TikTok, brother. And I'm like, oh, I like it. Unfortunately, I'm wondering, is it now time in that phase of AJ Styles' career where now he's going to put over Seth Rollins, now he's going to put over Grayson, now he's going to put over Karrion? Because it makes sense that that's the guy.
It does, but
it sucks because AJ Styles is still a superstar. I just hope that I would say that I think he's going to go 1 and 2. He'll beat Grayson Waller, but he'll lose to Karrion Kross and lose to Seth Rollins. And you still can keep him heavily invested with winning a feud here and there. But I think that Karrion Kross will get tremendous rub from working with AJ.
See, I think what they could do is AJ Styles could basically be your SmackDown champion without being your formal SmackDown champion. Again, Roman Reigns, there very rarely. There when he wants to be. So you need to basically have a second in command. You need to have a lieutenant, somebody who can basically be the de facto top of the card. That's AJ Styles. You get all these guys feuding with a guy like AJ Styles. One, it helps elevate that mid-card status, right? Helps raise it up. AJ Styles sits at the very, very top. He is the guy who will eventually challenge Roman Reigns when Roman gets done with whatever his hiatus is, whenever he gets done with the storyline with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, whatever happens with the bloodline, you will have AJ Styles sitting there waiting, and he can be the one to challenge him and try to take that belt off him. I think we both agree that at some point you're going to have Cody Rhodes take that belt off him. It'll probably be at next year's WrestleMania, which if you're going to SmackDown, or if you're going to SummerSlam, you kind of get screwed out of that match. But I think you can have AJ Styles be that de facto top dog, and he could be the guy to kind of carry the light for SmackDown. Because, again, sometimes it does feel like a bit of a rudderless ship when you don't have Roman Reigns there. And, like, Roman Reigns, I think, at this moment in time is a bigger star than a guy like AJ Styles. But AJ Styles is still really damn good. And you could still make it a really good show, working it and building it around AJ Styles, even though he isn't the champion. I think Roman Reigns has taken his game from being a place where he was definitely an upper mid-card talent to where he is in the realm of guys like The Rock, guys like Stone Cold Steve Austin, guys like HBK. I don't think at this moment in time we really appreciate what has been done by Roman Reigns. I think when Roman Reigns gets ready to leave WWE, I think we will miss what we've gotten from him. I think the big issue is we've gotten it so late in his career. It's taken so long for them to finally turn him heel and to let him just be him. He's always been whatever Vince wanted him to be. He is now being a little bit more of what he wants to be. He's taken a little bit more control of his character, and he is now a heel. And I think this is the most interesting he has been. But overall, I think you can build that show around a guy like AJ Styles. Do you think that is an option for SmackDown? Do you think that's an option for SmackDown creative? Instead of building everything around Roman Reigns, you now have another guy in AJ Styles, and you get him feuding with multiple people. It pulls everybody in and raises everybody up.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe you introduce another title, like a North American title, something that kind of is the SmackDown the SmackDown title. I know it's Roman Reigns, but he's gone, so you basically need an Intercontinental title featured on SmackDown. But yeah, absolutely. AJ Styles, whatever you do with him, he just shows up and has that presence. And I just thought that even when he comes out for an interview, I think the set might have been a little bit weird because it made him look a little bit short. But in regards to just what he can say and deliver, AJ Styles, anybody that you put him in the ring with is going to have the benefit of working with a real true pro. And I think it's great. Grayson Waller wants to get over. I think that Karrion Kross needs a nice feud. And moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
I think you definitely are exactly right. That heavily featuring AJ Styles is never going to be a bad thing.
For sure. And look, something that was heavily featured was the Bloodline storyline again. Roman Reigns made his return. Roman Reigns basically opened the show. Roman Reigns was in the middle of the show, and Roman Reigns was part of the end of the show. I want to get your thoughts about what happened when the Usos interrupted Roman Reigns. Roman started to cut a promo on Sami, and then the Usos interrupted and beat up Sami and Kevin. Next thing you know, we're backstage, and Roman is going off on the Usos, telling them, look, I gave this man a bunch of my time. I had things that I wanted to say to him. Did I get to say what I wanted to say to him? No. You guys always just doing whatever you guys want to do. I'm the head of the table. I am the tribal chief. You need to start listening to me. Stop doing what you want to do. That leads to a match later in the night where the Usos end up losing to the LWO because Sami and Kevin come down and they interfere in the match. I want to get your thoughts on all of this. There's a lot of moving parts here, and I think we're starting to see the writing on the wall. Also, there was the bump where Roman bumped into Solo Sikoa, and there was a little bit of awkwardness there at the very, very beginning of the show when Roman was getting ready to leave the ring because he was so upset with the Usos. I mean, there's a ton here. You've got the relationship with Roman, and you've got the relationship with Solo. You got the relationship with Roman and the relationship with the Usos. You've got the relationship with Roman and Sami, and you've got the relationship with Roman and Kevin. On top of all that, you've got Sami and Kevin versus Solo and Roman, and like you have all this going on in this one story. It is soap opera-esque to say the least. What was your take on all of this, and kind of where do you see this going? Because I feel like there's a lot of directions we can head in here.
Yeah, you can go in a lot of different directions. And that's what, in essence, was said after WrestleMania. The story's not done. Now the focus kind of is a little bit less on Sami Zayn, and the focus is what will happen with the Usos and Roman Reigns first. And I think eventually they'll fall in line. I don't think you end up breaking up the bloodline, but you got to find creative ways to make it so that, you know, the way in which it's repaired is very unique. I don't know if it's Roman winning the titles and then getting everybody in line by saying, look, this is what can happen if you fall in line with the tribal chief, and that shocks the Usos into falling in line, or it's maybe going to require a beatdown where you have one ending of SmackDown where Roman Reigns just absolutely destroys the Usos, take a couple weeks off, they come back, you think they're going to leave, but they fall back in line and end up being beaten into submission, and then you further explore the mental anguish that they're experiencing, having to deal with constant beatings, potentially from Solo and Roman. I don't know, it'd be kind of funny where every month or so they just take a beating from Roman Reigns. But it's going to be interesting, and that's kind of where the shift has been. It's been now the bloodline and what their relationship is. But you also see Paul Heyman kind of planting the seed. It kind of looks like when he was backstage, he had the look of, okay, Roman's not coming out, and then he had that like sinister look like, yeah, he's not coming out because he wants you to lose. He wants you to fail. So that angle could be, you know, maybe it's the bloodline will cease, and Roman Reigns excommunicates the Usos, and they can go on and do their own thing. But a lot of different things can happen, and I'm all for it. And obviously, Solo Sikoa plays a great role, too, being the right-hand man of Roman Reigns. But I'm interested to see when next week or so when we talk about Night of Champions, do you let Roman win every belt? Because I kind of think that would be kind of cool. Roman wins the tag belts, then Roman fights Seth Rollins and wins that belt, and he has all the belts, and he's sitting there king of the mountain. And then everybody's got to recognize he's the belt collector, and all of a sudden people realize, okay, now we got to take Roman a lot more serious. We do give him acknowledgement, we do treat him with respect, but now we want to start whooping his ass, and he starts putting people over. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But to me, the note that I put down, it's all good, but it's still not as hot as when Sami was chasing. Sami's involvement was the hottest because you have a face that is trying to get over. I don't think that people care about the Usos getting their ass beat. I think they want it. It's like, yeah, you've been on top, you're not listening. I think people will side with Roman. So it's been good, but not at anywhere near the zenith with Sami's involvement. But he had a good line telling Roman that the Usos are better than him. So it's still in the mix, but it's just not as hot because it's plodding along at like a snail's pace, which is fine. But I think it can go a little faster, you know, just a little bit faster. So it's been well done, well written. It's obviously been long term. They're weaving in and out of ideas. But for me, I just kind of want to kind of get to some plot points a little bit faster.
Yeah, I think it would be a big mistake if you made Roman the belt collector and you put all of them on them. I think where we're at right now with Roman Reigns is WWE realized they booked themselves into a bit of a hole in putting both those belts on him and not being able to get those belts off of him has really caused for new creative. Obviously, the creation of a new belt to crown a Raw champion. All that being said, I think you've got some really good, juicy story arcs going on here. Again, we talked about this a long time ago. I feel like Solo Sikoa will be the one to finally beat Roman Reigns and kind of be the straw that breaks the bloodline's back. I think the Usos end up leaving here very soon. Very shortly, I think the Usos end up breaking away from the bloodline, which I find to be, again, an interesting story. I don't know if the Usos end up turning around and helping Sammy or Kevin. I think that could be an interesting fold that gets weaved into it. You always have Paul Heyman, who does a great job crafting stories and does a great job just being in the background to convey whatever message he needs to convey. He doesn't have to say anything. Just his physical impressions and his physicality helps convey whatever the story is. I think there's a lot of really good stuff here. It really does feel like, again, Roman Reigns is playing that frenetic, frantic, fractured role where he is a little bit all over the place and he's trying to keep everything together, and it feels like it's coming apart at the seams. Either way, I think it's a really good story. I think what we got from WWE this week, whether it be Raw, whether it be SmackDown, I thought it was really, really good. Was there anything else that really stood out to you from WWE?
It just sucks that Liv Morgan got hurt. I mean, it's derailing. It kind of takes it back again. They can't. It seems like they just can't get that women's tag team off the ground. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Asuka Bianca Belair is very intriguing. I like the way in which Zelina Vega was used. She's having good matches. So the women are doing their thing. WWE has a lot of good storylines right now. And Gunther's appearances on Raw are going to be epic. It's just been great for WWE. On their way to Night of Champions, they've developed storylines that are interesting all along the way. Even guys like, even mid-card guys are getting some run. The LWO starting to creep into relevancy. You see Ali having a lot of opportunities now. And so it's starting to look good. The one thing that just, for me, those dudes, that new tag team from NXT, Pretty Deadly, I can't get into them. I can't get into them with chest open outfits. If they just change
that's Kenny's squad, man. I know.
I can't get into them. I'm trying. I'm looking at it from Kenny's eyes, but my daughter looked at them and looked at them cross-eyed. She's 10, turning 11. I have that. I have that same reaction. Dudes in open-chested singlets in 2023 as a tag team is not going to work for me. Now, they have talent. I like their backstage vignette. But to me, it just screamed like, okay, this is going to be a team. My note for Pretty Deadly was, this is what an AEW tag team would look like in WWE. And I just change the outfits into something a little bit more masculine, a little bit more 2023. And it harkens back to old school, but they got the win. That's fine. I just don't see them being taken seriously with their get up. I don't know. I've never gotten them in NXT. Don't get them now. They made their debut. I hope the creative is at least more interesting than the get up.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with them. I think they have potential, right? I think they're interesting. To me, they remind me a little bit of Breeze Dango, right? Maybe a little bit more flamboyant, a little bit more flashy. But they remind me of guys like that.
And where'd they end up?
What happened with Breeze with Breeze Dango? They didn't really get used. I think Breeze Dango's best storyline was when they were the detectives. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know. I think they're meant to be fun, and we'll kind of see where they go from there. So, like you mentioned earlier, we had Tony Khan on AEW making another announcement about having another announcement. But the big announcement that came out this week was that AEW Collision is going to be a show. We talked about this last week. We talked about this the last couple weeks. On June 17th, AEW Collision will be debuting on TNT. This is going to be a Saturday night show. This might impact the way we record, and we might have to make some adjustments. We'll have to figure it out. But June 17th is the day for the debut episode of AEW Collision on TNT. I believe it'll be running from 8 p.m. until 10 p.m., Look, I'm assuming that at a certain point it's going to get bumped around because you're going to have hockey and you're going to have basketball. At that point, both of those finals should be over, so they should be good for the remainder of the year. But when it gets into next year, I'm sure there'll be some adjustments to that programming. Look, if you've seen the logo looks very reminiscent of WCW Monday Nitros. So I think it's a bit of a callback. And because of that, it raised a few questions for me. And I was wondering if it raised any of these concerns for you. Do you have any fear that Collision could dilute the AEW programming and become essentially what WCW Thunder was to Monday Nitro? And if you remember, during the Monday Night Wars, Nitro got off to a very hot start and was beating up on Monday Night Raw. Eric Bischoff had the idea to create WCW Thunder. This was a show that was supposed to basically challenge SmackDown. What ended up happening was he stretched himself so thin with his creative, you ended up getting really bad booking on Thunder. Thunder was never really taken serious, and then that spilled into what was going on Monday Night Nitro because they were spinning their wheels on Thunder. Wade Keller just came out with basically an open-ended piece, writing essentially to Tony Khan and writing to AEW saying, don't become what Eric Bischoff said WCW Thunder was to him and how it killed Monday Nitro. Don't allow that to happen. It came from a very good place. I thought it was a very well-written piece, but I could see this happening. Tony Khan is so involved in the day-to-day that goes on with AEW. He is so involved with the creative. Now, they are talking about bringing in Bryan Danielson to help with the creative on Collision, and Bryan Danielson excelled when he was in WWE doing creative work. So it could work. It could help. But I do see this having more potential to be a failure than to be anything good for the company. And a lot of that has to do with what has happened with Rampage. Rampage is abysmal. Like, I don't even watch Rampage anymore. It is like the D-list programming for me. I can't watch it. It doesn't do anything to move any storylines forward. There's nothing there that really makes me tune in. Do you see Collision possibly being reminiscent to what WCW Thunder was? And do you see this possibly hurting AEW Dynamite the way that WCW Thunder hurt Monday Nitro?
Yeah, it's going to be incumbent. Obviously, everyone knows the fails of WCW. I think it's going to be good because you're going to expose more talent. I think WCW, what ended up happening, and a big chunk of it obviously was a company that wasn't really in support of WCW, and they had to cut costs. They had to make it that way. Eric Bischoff's book, if you really want an inside look, he wrote a book called Controversy Creates Cash, and he's like, everybody kind of says that, this is the reason why, here's the reason why. It was like I was constantly battling corporate structures that were not giving me money, that when a corporation buys another corporation, there's inherently going to be cost cutting. And unfortunately, we were the ones getting our hands tied. And he said that, we had monies left. We had nobody. We had people that just wanted to be in the mix, and it was a nightmare. He's like, how do you go from being that successful with Nitro and then having that level of disaster? Well, it's because there's outside influences that didn't let me they didn't let me cook. And he's like, that's what they wanted to happen. They didn't care if they moved on from wrestling because it was evident. I think Tony Khan loves this so much, he's not going to let it fail. I do see potential for, opportunities for others like Miro, maybe CM Punk, maybe others, like Jungle Boy, others that will have the opportunity to showcase what they're about. And I think that having another 2-hour show is good. It's solid. It'll provide another test for Tony Khan to see where his roster's at and what his creativity is going to be. And I think it's going to be good. Now, maybe what we can do, obviously, with recording real fast is we just treat the Saturday show as the first show instead of Raw, and then I'll make a concerted effort to get the podcast out by like noon on Saturday, and just make it boom, drop it, and then it'll go from Collision until SmackDown, and then we'll figure it out and see how it goes. But it's interesting. It's going to be another test. We lose the hour of Rampage, which was like, I'm not watching it, but we have to get the extra show in Collision. But we'll see how it goes. June, it'll be the biggest test for Tony Khan and his writing team.
Do you have any concerns? Because right now it really does feel like Collision is the show that everybody who has a problem with every other wrestler that they go to, that the troubled wrestlers end up on Collision. So Collision was supposed to have a bit of a cast of CM Punk was supposed to be there. Still not 100% sure. We've got some notes on that. Andrade was supposed to be there. You were supposed to have Thunder Rosa there, and those were supposed to be the staples. Miro was supposed to help fill out the roster. Powerhouse Hobbs because he really likes CM Punk. FTR because they really like CM Punk. And it really seemed like if you were in support of a guy like CM Punk, or if you were in support of a guy like Andrade, you were going to this show. If you were in support of a girl like Thunder Rosa, you were going to this show. But if you supported the Elite, you were staying on Dynamite. And if you supported Britt Baker and Jamie Hayter, you were staying on Dynamite. Do you feel like a company can kind of work like that? Now, originally this was supposed to be a hard split. And then it was, no, it's going to be a soft split. And then it was supposed to be a hard split. It sounds like it's going to be a bit of a soft split. But still, it sounds like you are taking some of your troubled wrestlers and putting them over here. And you're like, here, this is your show. And then you're keeping your other wrestlers and you're like, here, this is your show. And you are splitting your talent up that way. Can that work? Will that work?
It all depends on creative. It does appear that way. But I just think that you have a bloated roster. You have so many people. You got to feature them, especially taking away Elevation Dark from really the heights, the way in which it was being featured. Now you just have to establish more. You have to establish a little bit more of the mid card. You do, and I think that's what happens is that a guy like Miro can be signed for probably a very hefty contract, but isn't utilized. You need a place to get them reps, and I just think that. Yeah, it's a question mark that they're going to have to answer, which is who's going to show up when. But I just think the additional time will be good. I just think that, in the model of WWE, having the two shows puts you in front of more eyes. You need to develop, but you got to have resonating. Look, outside of whatever the reason is, you got to have resonating shows. You can't have where Dynamite got to a point where you, even with all that talent, was putting on C+ shows for a good 3 months. Only now did they turn it around with a storyline that people love. So you can't start off like that. Collision can't be Thunder. It has to be something that's relevant where we don't want to say in the first month, well, I missed Collision, it was no big deal. No, you will say, oh, you missed Collision, you missed the debut, or you missed a great Roosh match, or you missed a great match that people are talking about. So that's what you got to do. You got to have lasting
It has
impact.
to rival Dynamite.
Yes,
it has to rival
yes.
This week, Dynamite, I felt like was a lot of fun. I felt like Dynamite was a really good show this week. I thought the way it ended, that's what we're going to talk about here in a moment, but I thought Dynamite as a whole, just the way the show was put together, was very fun, very intriguing. It kept me interested. And a lot of times for me, that's the hard part, right? Keeping me interested. You have your phone in your hand. You can do 1,001 things, This week, I felt like Dynamite really kept me engaged and kept me interested. I thought it was a really fun show. The word I keep going back to is fun. I thought it was fun. If you're going to do another show and it's going to be multiple hours long, it has to rival your main show. It has to give it a run for its money. I'm not saying that Collision has to be as good as Dynamite. Some nights it has to be better, but for the most part, Collision has to challenge Dynamite as being one of those shows that is you have to tune into it. It is appointment viewing. Like the way we work our schedules around watching wrestling. It sounds stupid, and it is kind of dumb that we do it this way, but we work our schedules, we work our days around watching wrestling. Okay, it's Monday. I got to be in my seat at 8 o'clock so I can watch Monday Night Raw. Tuesday comes around, you get a little bit of a break because we don't really watch NXT anymore. Wednesday rolls around, I got to be in my seat at 8 o'clock. I've got to watch AEW. Thursday rolls around, you get a bit of a break unless you're watching Impact. Friday rolls around, I got to be in my seat at 8 o'clock because I got to watch SmackDown. This is how it works. And with the new programming, you have to get it that way. You have to where it's a Saturday night. I've got to watch this. I can't necessarily go out to the bar because I got to stay home because I got to see what's going to happen because it's got me that interested. It has to rival and has to challenge. That's the only way it'll succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got to be interesting. It's got to kick off strong. I think they will. The first couple of shows definitely will be attention grabbers, but let's see how they act in August and September.
Yeah, for sure. Once it gets kind of rolling, gets kind of going, we can double back and kind of see where we're at with it all. I thought the way that Dynamite ended was fantastic. There was a little bit of a nod to I believe it was Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy or Marvel's Avengers, when you had the Elite at the very top of the ramp. You had Hangman Page basically doing his best Thor, and you had Kenny Omega doing his best Captain America. I wasn't really sure what the Young Bucks were. I thought it was fantastic, though. Hangman Page is back with the Elite. They end up rushing the ring. Don Callis never really gives his full answer as why he turned his back on Kenny Omega. He started to, and then you had Blackpool Combat Club come out with the Elite coming out, and just utter chaos happened. But it's set up, and it helped drive home what is going to be your main event for Double or Nothing with Anarchy in the Arena. I want to know what your level of excitement is for Anarchy in the Arena, because I was in the middle of, at the very end of this show, I was in the middle of getting my stuff ready for bed. I was in the kitchen, so you know how my house is set up. Kitchen in my living room, it's open floor plan. You can see everything from the kitchen, and I've got the TV up really loud as I'm basically getting my vitamins ready, and I'm making sure that my lunch bag is packed for work the next day. And next thing you know, you've got Hangman up there with the Elite. I stop everything I'm doing. I walk into the living room, and I'm just standing there. And my mouth is agape, and I am enjoying everything I'm seeing. And then you have Hangman cut the quick promo and says, we're going to challenge you to Anarchy in Arena. And I was like, yes, let's go. I was legitimately excited. Excitement level 1 to 10. I was at a 9.5. I'm pumped up for this. I love Hangman Page with the eye patch. I love the way Kenny Omega looks. Physically, he looks great. The Bucks look like they are healthy. I am pumped up for this match. I think this could be a lot of fun. Where is your excitement level for what appears to be the main event of Double or Nothing?
Oh, yeah, let me set the scene. I was having sex with my wife, and then all of a sudden...
Were you?
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute, we got to stop. Adam Hangman Page is on the stage. We got to stop this. So it got me to stop. No, of course not. But it was definitely...
You should have just kept going with that. I was buying it.
No, it's good, right? It was attention grabbing. The gist is it got me to stop having something very fun, and I was like, oh, Adam Hangman Page is back. But my nightly routine might be different than Adam's. I'm not doing no prep until the morning, but
look, man, I'm a Boy Scout.
No,
right?
I know.
Everything gets done the night before.
No, it was great seeing it because it's intriguing. People love it, and people are very invested in Adam Hangman Page and the Elite and the coming full circle and helping out the boys. And it's just, I mean, it's 8 of the greatest wrestlers in the company, and they're feuding together. So what's not to like? It was definitely attention grabbing. It capped off what in my mind was the show of the week. It was dynamite. It was amazing. It was just perfectly timed, like you said. I thought that under the radar moment was MJF slapping the mic out of Renee Paquette's hand. I thought that was cool. I just think that this feud has the potential, if told right, can be something that can carry the company all the way into the pay-per-view, and people are very intrigued. That's what a top feud should look like. And it's rivaling the Bloodline feud. So that's what I think that sometimes the competition's good, is that you have to book against your competition, and what is signaled to AEW is we got to have a main feud that maybe can have some layers to it. So we'll see. We'll see. Does anybody from the Elite switch to the Combat Club? Typically the turns tend to go from the face team to the heel. Does anybody go from Blackpool to the Elite? We'll see. It'll be fun to see how it plays out, but it's going to be a good story that's already intriguing to a lot of people.
Yeah, most definitely. It will be a really good story. You already gave your show of the week. I'm going to second that. I think Dynamite, like I said earlier, it was just fun. It was a great show. It ended in a fantastic way. If you have 2 hours, you want to watch some wrestling, I say go watch AEW Dynamite this week. I thought it was fantastic. If you want a second show, if you got 4 hours you want to spend, I say go watch SmackDown. I thought it was Dynamite 1, SmackDown 2. I thought they were both very good programs. I thought if you have a chance, if you want to take something in, watch those. Watch them in that order. You won't be upset. You'll be excited. Ready for some news and notes? I got a lot to tell you this week.
Hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made the list?
We have a health update on Randy Orton and his future, or what it may possibly hold. It's been over a year since Orton's last WWE match on May 20th of 2022's episode of SmackDown. Randy Orton's in-ring future remains in as much doubt as ever. Randy's father, Bob Orton, has now provided an update while speaking with Sportskeeter's Bill Aptar. Bob Orton noted that he believes Randy has been advised by doctors not to return to the ring, noting that Randy has been training. Bob said, he's training, so we'll see what happens. I don't know if he feels like going back. If he feels like going back, or if he feels like he's ready to go back, I think he might. Then again, he's pretty well taken care of. I don't think he needs to. I think the doctors have told him not to. Despite this, Bob Orton would maintain that if Randy wants to return, that's likely what will end up happening, saying Randy will do what Randy is going to do. He always does. Where is Bray Wyatt? In an update from Fightful Select, numerous WWE sources have confirmed that both Bray Wyatt and Bo Dallas, who portrays Uncle Howdy, are still with the company. However, WWE did not have Bray Wyatt listed on their internal roster in any fashion. Fightful notes that Wyatt was omitted due to injury, specifically the illness he has been dealing with for the past few months. This has led to speculation about his status within the company, but it seems as though there has really been no update either way regarding a possible return, his illness, or his status within the company. The creator for Uncle Howdy has been on hold due to Wyatt's absence, but both men are still in the company. Remember, the company can't technically release you if you are hurt or in a treatment program. Again, we have no idea what is going on with Bray Wyatt, but if he is seeking, mental help, or if he is in some type of a treatment program, the company generally will not and cannot release you because they're covering the care for those. So we'll see what happens with Bray Wyatt. It's very, very weird. Comes back, and then all of a sudden he's gone again, and he is sick, and he's been sick for a while. So we'll see what takes place. AEW files for a new trademark. On May 15th, AEW filed an application to trademark the term Double Jeopardy. Double Jeopardy is a new match stipulation that will see two champions face off, with the winner earning a shot at the loser's title. We've seen this on the May 10th episode of Dynamite with the ROH World Championship Claudio Castagnoli facing off against ROH Tag Team Champion Rey Fenix. Castagnoli will now challenge for the ROH Tag Team title belt against the Lucha Brothers. So we'll see what takes place there. And sticking with AEW, an announcement of AEW Collision, which has led to AEW and CM Punk having more issues. PW Insider reported that this falling out between the company and one of the biggest draws in the business is over the return of Punk's longtime associate Ace Steel. AEW was reportedly willing to rehire Ace Steel, but not allow him to be backstage at AEW shows in person, which Punk disagreed with because he wants Steel backstage. This is reportedly what led to another falling out, and Punk was removed from all the Collision promotional materials, except Warner Brothers Discovery accidentally left him on an email. Hence how the story was originally supposed to be involved got out. Warner Brothers Discovery then issued a statement addressing the situation, saying CM Punk is not affiliated with TNT's AEW Collision, so they basically just made it worse. However, in the midst of all this happening, Punk went onto his Instagram story with some comments. Punk initially pointed some comments directly at Brian Alvarez of the Wrestling Observer, who also had reported about the possible issue between Punk and AEW. But he also posted the following general message to everyone. Friendly reminder, I haven't been on TV in 9 months, and y'all can't stop talking about me. Maybe stop, you'll feel better. Love, hate, it's all the same. Don't enjoy being the sole person that props up the entire misinformation clickbait industry based on toxic gossip from lying sources, but what can you do? When you're the king, it comes with the crown. Punk also filmed a video commenting, saying, one more before I go real quick. The parasocial relationship of a lot of fringe wrestling fans have with certain people is really unhealthy. It gets tribalism. It's fun to root for your team, but picking sides seems a little silly. You don't know me. You don't know anything. You don't know anybody else. So just go touch grass. Now, a recent report from Nick Hausman of House of Wrestling states that Steel was actually rehired by AEW months ago. Steel has reportedly been working remotely since that point, but there was said to be an understanding that he would return to the road once Collision kicked off. But the decision was made not to do that. At that point, after Punk heard about it, there was reportedly some miscommunication between lawyers, and Punk was removed from the Collision promotional material. Hausman did add to the report, it does seem like Punk is still motivated, and the relationship between he and Tony Khan is on sound footing. It does sound like CM Punk is really upset that Ace Steel is not going to be allowed on the road. It'll be interesting to see if Tony Khan ends up kind of caving to this, because Tony Khan is the one who has basically put his foot in the ground and says, no, he's not coming to the tapings. He can be part of the creative team. He can be part of this. He can be part of that, but he's not going to be on the road. He's not going to be in the building when we're there. And CM Punk is like, well, then if he's not there, I'm not there. We'll have to see how this gets worked out. We've got about a month until they can get it all figured out. I do believe that what you're going to get for Collision, your first day for the June 17th show, is going to be in Chicago. And if it's in Chicago, the expectation is CM Punk will be there. We will have to see what takes place and what happens there. And we end on some sad news. On Wednesday, May 17th, 2023, as word circulated that WWE Hall of Famer superstar Billy Graham had sadly passed away at the age of 79. Graham's real name, Edrit Wayne Coleman, had been dealing with health issues for years and years and was placed on life support a few days earlier. His wife Valerie said on Monday that the doctors wanted to take him off life support, but she refused. After getting into bodybuilding, Coleman started out his wrestling career for Stampede Wrestling in the late 1960s after being trained by Stu Hart. He then wrestled for the NWA and the AWA before debuting for the WWE. At that time, it was WWF in 1975. A run that included him being the man that ended Bruno Sammartino's historic 1,237-day championship reign. From then, he spent most of his career with WWE, but did make some returns to the NWA and the AWA. He was forced to retire from in-ring action in 1987 at just 44 years old due to injury. He admitted to steroid use, which he feels contributed to his health decline over the years. Superstar Billy Graham was 79 years old when he passed away earlier this week. That's going to do it for this week's wrestling news and notes, my brother.
Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. If you've agreed or disagreed with anything that you heard this week, hit us up. We love having the debate. We love posting wrestling GIFs across the sporting landscape here in Detroit. You guys have made the support very fun, understanding where we're coming from in regards to the world of professional wrestling. So it's very fun. Thank you guys for your support. Anywhere that you listen and find your favorite audio content, make sure to type in Detroit Sports Podcast and our content will find you. No extra work needed. You subscribe, like, hit those reviews, and you can continue to spread the word on the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast. For the mouth-breathing mouth of Macomb, I'm the Doc John Macaroon. My cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Enjoy breaking down the world of wrestling. I can't wait to do it again next week on the latest edition of the Doc and Jock Wrestling Podcast.